Start off by soaking the EXP disc in oil for at least 5 minutes. Laying the bike on its side makes the clutch installation much easier and eliminates the need to drain the oil. Remove the return spring if it is attached to the clutch cover. Push the rear caliper in and depress the rear brake pedal. Insert a screwdriver as a stop. Remove the clutch cover. Remove the spring pressure ring. The spring pressure ring has 3 possible settings. It will be marked with either a 1, 2, 3, or an X, Y, Z. Remove the bolts and the bevel spring. Then remove the slider ring from the pressure plate. Remove the OEM pressure plate. Remove the throwout. Remove the entire clutch pack, taking special care to prevent the drive pins from falling into the motor. Using picks will make things much easier. Separate the OEM drive plates from the OEM frictions. Remove the 6 drive pins and set aside. These will be reinstalled in the Rekluse center hub. Use a flat blade screwdriver and a mallet to bend the tabs down on the tab lock washer. Remove the OEM center clutch nut. If air is available, you can use it. Just remember to avoid using air when tightening the center clutch nut. Remove the center hub assembly. Make sure that the thrust washer does not stick to the back of the hub like it has here. It needs to remain in place on the main shaft. Now, inspect your dampers. To do this, place your thumbs on the inner portion. Try to twist the inner hub with your thumbs. If the dampers are good, you shouldn't feel any slop. If the dampers are worn, you will feel slop as shown here. Failure to replace worn dampers will result in poor performance and increased risk of clutch failure. Remove the inner part of the inner hub. This will be reused with the Rekluse center hub. Remove the 6 rubber dampers. These will also be reused if they are in good condition. Install the 6 rubber dampers into the Rekluse center hub. Place them with the connecting bar down and the open end facing the middle of the hub. Install the OEM inner hub into the Rekluse hub. The OEM inner hub should be a snug fit. If it drops in easily, it could be another sign that your dampers are worn out. Firmly press the inner hub into place, ensuring that it becomes flush with the back side of the outer hub. Install the center hub assembly into the motorcycle. Reinstall the OEM tab lock washer and the OEM center clutch nut. Torque the center clutch nut to OEM spec. Do not over torque or drag will occur. Use the pliers to bend the tabs back up, clamping the center clutch nut. Seat the 6 OEM drive pins into the Rekluse center hub as shown. On this particular model, we will be using specifically designed drive plates that offer superior clutch performance. Begin reinstalling the clutch pack with the Rekluse steel drive plate. These plates must be installed in this specific orientation. If the plates are installed backwards, the clutch will not function properly. Follow this drive plate with an OEM friction. Continue this alternating pattern until you have 8 Rekluse drive plates and 7 OEM frictions installed. We are now ready to install the EXP assembly into the clutch pack. Ensure that this goes in on top of the Rekluse drive plate. It is normal to have the EXP sitting part way above the basket. Reinstall the OEM throwout. Now we can install the Rekluse pressure plate and lining plate. Index the rectangle tabs into the corresponding pressure plate slots. Hold the lining plate and pressure plate together as you place it back on top of the clutch pack assembly. Reinstall the OEM slider ring with rounded edge facing up. There is also a marking that reads top on it, which should be facing up. Reinstall the OEM bevel spring cupped side down. Reinstall the OEM pressure ring flat side up. Secure the pressure plate assembly using Rekluse supplied screws. Do not use OEM or damage will occur. Reinstall the OEM spring pressure ring using the heaviest setting. This will be either the 3 setting or the Z setting, depending on model. Use the included T25 Torx bit to torque the screws to 55 inch-pounds. Now we will install the Rekluse clutch cover. Be sure to use the OEM fill plug and OEM bolts. Reattach the brake pedal return spring. Pump the rear brake pedal several times to clamp the rear brake pads back to the rotor. Stand the bike back up and place it on the bike stand. Now we will be replacing the OEM slave cylinder and making our install gap adjustment. Unscrew the bolt holding the chain guide in place. Remove dust cap from banjo bleeder bolt. Gloves are recommended for this part of the install, as well as safety glasses. Remove the banjo bleeder bolt. Remove the 2 OEM crush washers and discard. Remove the remaining slave cylinder bolts. Ensure that the OEM gasket remains in place. Remove the OEM case O-ring from the OEM slave cylinder. This will be reinstalled with the Rekluse adjustable slave cylinder. Now we must prepare the Rekluse adjustable slave cylinder for bleeding. Use a 4mm Allen wrench to make the top O-ring visible on the adjuster screw. Pour clutch fluid into the slave cylinder port. Note that you need to use proper clutch fluid based on the specific model bike you have. Check the cap of the clutch master cylinder to determine the correct type. Turn the adjuster screw clockwise until it bottoms out, while assuring that fluid stays topped off. Now turn the adjuster screw back to the initial position with the top O-ring visible. Compress the piston until it bottoms out while looking for air bubbles. If air bubbles can be seen escaping, please repeat the process. Reattach the banjo bolt using the 2 supplied crush washers from Rekluse. Ensure that the banjo fitting is sandwiched between the crush washers, as shown. Reinstall the OEM case O-ring. You also need to make sure that the ball bearing has remained in place with the Rekluse save cylinder. This is something that was installed by Rekluse. Install the adjustable slave cylinder with the OEM bolts. Attach the rubber bleed tube to the bleeder fitting on the banjo bolt. Loop the overflow tube up and into a suitable catch bottle. Remove the cap and bladder from the OEM clutch master cylinder. Rotate the clutch purge so that the master cylinder reservoir is level with the ground. Top off the reservoir with proper clutch fluid. Pump the clutch lever 3 to 5 times and hold it in. While still holding the clutch lever in, use an 8mm wrench to open the bleed port. Air and fluid should come out of the bleed tube. Tighten the bleed port back down. Make sure that the clutch fluid has remained in the reservoir and repeat this process until no air comes out of the bleed tube. Ensure that the clutch lever feels and functions properly. We want the reservoir to be about 75% full, then we can reinstall the reservoir cap. Remove the overflow tube and bottle. Reattach the dust cap. At this point of the install, we are ready to set the install gap. Using a 4mm Allen wrench with the long end inserted, turn the adjuster screw until it stops under moderate pressure. You are trying to feel for the point at which the throwout will start to lift the pressure plate. This is known as a starting point. Once you have consistently found the starting point, turn the adjuster clockwise 1 full turn plus 5 tick marks. Let the bike warm up for about 2 to 3 minutes. Now we need to check for free play gain. Wrap the supplied rubber band around the bars and lever as shown. With the bike warmed up and running in neutral, blip the throttle to at least 5,000 RPM. The lever should only move in about 1/8 of an inch. As you can see, we have way too much free play gain. To get your lever movement down to 1/8 of an inch, we need to simply turn the adjustment screw clockwise to further lift the pressure plate. This forms a larger install gap and therefore less free play gain. It's still a tad too much, so we need to continue tightening the adjustment screw. There we go. Perfect. On the flip side, if you don't have any free play gain, you must turn your adjustment screw counterclockwise, which lowers the install gap and increases your free play gain. With the bike in neutral and your hand off the clutch lever, rev the motor 20 times to at least 5,000 RPMs. Be sure to let the engine return to idle between revs. This procedure breaks in the EXP unit. Now while the engine is still running, pull in the clutch lever and click the transmission into first gear. Slowly release the lever. The bike should stay in place, maybe even with slight creeping. If stalling occurs, click the bike back into neutral and recheck free play gain. At 1/8 inch, stalling should not occur. Once the bike is idling in first gear, slowly roll on the throttle without touching the clutch lever. Accelerate to about 5,000 RPMs and come to a stop. Repeat this 20 times. Next, we will do the same thing, only now you should start off in second gear and repeat 10 times. Now we must recheck our free play gain. If you still have 1/8 inch of lever movement, you are good to go. If not, make the appropriate adjustments to either raise or lower the pressure plate. And that concludes our install of the Core EXP auto clutch for DDS style clutches.